All right, Stokastic, here we go. It's your old pal EMac coming to you on a Sunday evening with the one and only Matt Patricia here as we get to see a little NFL NBA crossover. What's going on, Matt LaMarca?
Doing well, good win for me up against the Jets today. I thought I called a great game on the defensive side of the ball. So now we transition over to the NBA side and see if we can win some money there.
Yeah, chat's saying I better be in costume. You're going as Matt Patricia. I didn't even think about it. I don't think I have anything. I have a funny birthday hat I put on because now, that we work from home, we do little Zoom calls for birthdays for people in our office. So I have the old birthday hat. That's really it. Nothing crazy. Very sad. Very sad. But we've got 6 games, so we're going to dive right into that. They do tip off at 6 o'clock tonight. Then at 7:15, you will get NFL Live Before Lock with Neil Orfield and Eric Lindquist. Also brought to you by No House Advantage. We're going to talk about them a little bit, but I want to remind you that, hey, they do have free projections here on our site for their site. They also have a lineup generator on their site. And of course, they have plenty of overlay. If you want to sign up there, come in through the link below us in the description, click on that, and you'll get up to a $50 deposit match, courtesy of No House Advantage. All right, let's just jump into the games. I ran a little long the other night. I do a bunch of half-hour shows during the week, and then it's weird doing an hour show, and I ran long last night, but that's okay because I saved. It was you that was on the later show? It was
me and Greg. Yeah.
Do you guys really want to go 90 minutes, or are you okay if I slide 5 or 6 minutes over?
EMac, you do whatever you want. I'm getting paid the same either way. Okay, go an hour over if you need to.
Wait, you get paid for this? Oh, I have to ask about that. We'll see. All right. Well, let's jump on in here. We have quite a few injuries. First game, nothing too crazy. It's Washington at Boston. Boston favored by 9. We have a 221 implied point total there. You've got Malcolm Brogdon, who will be in. He was dealing with a sore back, but he will be coming off the bench in his 6th-man role. Everybody's healthy for Washington with the exception of Corey Kispert. That's really not going to make much of a difference here, but we have seen a much improved Washington team. Their defense continues to be decent, which is a massive upgrade for them considering after last season, they were okay. The 3 prior years, they were last, and second to last. So Coach Wes Unseld Jr. has done a little bit with their defense. That makes this game look a little bit sluggish, Matt. So we only have 6 games. This has a 221 projected total. It is the 3rd lowest. We have the Knicks and Cleveland at 220, and then we have Orlando at Dallas at 212. So we can't really cross games out because of that. But with most everybody healthy and a mediocre these days 220 projected total, hard to get excited about anybody. So I'm going to open up both sides of this game to you. Who would you like to talk about? I'm guessing there'll be a little Jason Tatum discussion. Do we go beyond that?
I still think Jason Tatum is too cheap at 9,700 on DraftKings. He's priced more appropriately on FanDuel, but he's been better than he was last year to start this season. He's up to 1.38 DraftKings points per minute. He's been scoring the ball very efficiently. The rebound production has been there with no Robert Williams. I think that continues. So I think, and of course the minutes are always going to be there for Tatum. He's one of the leaders in the league in that department. So I think 9,700, he's like a guy that should be priced into the 5 figures at this point. I don't mind paying 97 for him. After that, it does become a little bit hairy in this game trying to find plays. Al Horford was somebody we counted on last year, but his per minute production has kind of fallen off a cliff so far this season. The only other guy that really is popping for me is Denny Avdia, just as a value play at 4,200. The minutes are going to be there for him most nights. He has been solid at 0.85 fantasy points per minute this year. So I do have a little bit of Denny as a value play, but for the most part, Tatum is kind of the only guy that I'm looking at here.
Yeah, it's kind of disappointing just a little bit, but there's not a whole lot to add about this one. Do I dislike players from this game? No, not particularly. And if they're going to land one or two lands in my lineups, I'll have zero issues with that because I'll play about 100 lineups tonight. The optimizer will take care of me getting a reasonable place in there. But there's just not that value that we like to find here on DraftKings. We're sort of looking for that 5.0 points per thousand is kind of about where you start to reach that break even. It varies depending on slates, or if you have entire teams sitting or multiple injuries, etc. But that's usually right about the break point there. And smaller slates, that'll get down to 4.7. Slates like last night, I think it was up about 5.5 before anybody got into your lineup because there was some tremendous opportunities. But that's quite all right. We do have a little bit of potential news later on tonight with the health of Anthony Davis. We don't want to pin our hopes and dreams on that because it's really not going to change that much for the Lakers. But the rest of the news we seem to have pretty well covered here. I wanted to check out Monte Morris rebounds. So I wanted to talk about this. I wrote this up as our recommended play of the day in the DFS picks building blocks article. Monte Morris over on rebounds. He is still sitting at 2.5. And that's a low number for a guard. And with him, he actually has, now that he's getting decent playing time, he has a regular role here with Washington. He has a 3.8 implied or projected rebound total, which gives him about a 70% chance of hitting that milestone. He has 3 or more rebounds in 4 of his last 5 games. I think he has a good chance of getting that to a 5th game tonight. Just needs to get 2.5. So I'm comfortable with that. Feels good as part of a same game parlay. You could work in some of the 3-point shooters for both sides here, or you could look for some of the scoring from Tatum. I'd rather not. With Boston mostly healthy, I don't want to count on his rebounding. Even with Robert Williams out, he doesn't get as many rebounds as we would like to think he typically does. Just for his entire career, I forget what his number is. It's like around 7 or something. You would think more, oh, he's a 20-20 guy. It's like, well, no, he tends to play away from the basket a lot. He's got a bunch of other teammates to do a pretty good job of rebounding. So we want to be careful with that. Anything else for the Boston Wizards matchup here?
You can look at Marcus Smart, I think, is 5,500. Like, that's a fine play. He's not somebody that I'm prioritizing tonight, but I do have a little bit of him. The guy that we're showing with like the top ownership projection in this game is Jaylen Brown, or one of the top ownership projections. And he's somebody that I do not have at the moment. So he's coming off a big game last time out, but he played nearly 43 minutes. That's obviously not going to happen every night. I think that this is a good opportunity to sell Jaylen Brown. So, yeah, I think this is a game for the most part we don't need to pay a ton of attention to.
All right, not fair. We have plenty of other games we'll talk about. I do see Stephen Leibowitz in chat, friend of the show, mentions Marcus Smart. I don't have a very good Boston accent, but I'm envisioning a good Boston accent the way he typed it. So if everybody closes their eyes, they can imagine that as well. Hey, did you see what happened to the Golden State Warriors last night?
Yeah, they lost to Charlotte.
How did that happen? Hey, did you see what happened to the Dallas Mavericks last night? Hey, they lost to Oklahoma City. Anybody asked tonight, are we worried about blowout potential? No, we are not this season, or at least at this point. 2 double-digit underdogs ended up winning last night against 2 pretty good teams that have, you always say, oh, whoever has the best player, the best 2 players on the court, that team should win. That didn't happen last night in 2 different occasions. So what are we doing here? Klay Thompson out on the back-to-back. I'd like to think that Golden State doesn't want to drop this one. They should be able to take care of business here against Detroit. But I thought the same thing in Charlotte last night where they're playing the understudies. So what do you want to do here? Let's start off with the Dubs. If you're Steve Kerr, what are you looking at here?
I think it's a good spot to target Golden State. You would hope that coming off a loss, they're going to be a little bit more focused than you might normally think for a matchup with the Pistons. And no, Klay Thompson does help the rest of this team. I haven't been on Steph Curry much to start the year, and it hasn't worked for the most part. Like, he's been really good, 1.54 DraftKings points per minute so far this season. I think you can definitely play him at 9,800. The Warriors are second in pace this season, and the Pistons are dead last in defensive efficiency. So it's a spot where they should be able to put a lot of points up on the scoreboard. I think Wiggins at 6,900 on DraftKings is fine. Nice. Jordan Poole at 6K is probably the strongest option in this contest, right? Like if we give him a couple extra minutes tonight and project him to move into the starting lineup, which, he did most of the season last year when Clay was unavailable. I think that, for sure he's going to be a strong option at 6K. You can use Draymond. The upside with Draymond is questionable. And I think Kevon Looney is okay as a value play. So like the Warriors are a team that I think you definitely want to get exposure to.
All right. Wow. We have 900 watching here. Not even 100 likes. Let's get some likes here. We're here on a Sunday with you. We're going against not one, not two, not three, but 4 NFL games right now. So give us a like here. We got Matt and your old pal here having some fun. Turning things over to the Detroit side here. Let's look at their injury report. Nobody of Alec Burks. We're really not going to count him. How are you feeling about Detroit? Some decent young talent. They seem to have some moments here. Nobody's really being run into the ground, but we do have a Golden State team that's not quite as good on defense as they have been previously. 'Tis still the regular season, and hopefully they keep winning. Clippers, not so much. Clippers, are they going to make the play-in game? That's a question for another time, but they dropped one here to New Orleans this afternoon. What would you like to do here with Detroit? I think we can pick a couple players here and there.
Yeah. First, Cade Cunningham right now is still 8,100. I think that's still a very good price tag for him. He's coming off at least 48 in back-to-back games. There was some concern that his numbers would take a hit in their last game with Ivy back in there, but Cunningham was fine, right? He did post a slightly lower usage rate, but he's good at racking up rebounds and assists. So he doesn't need like a 40% usage rate to potentially be a strong play at 8,100. Right now, we have him projected for just 8.5% ownership roughly on DraftKings. And I think that that's someone I want to be overweight on tonight. I'll have a little bit of Bojan. The newly extended Bojan Bogdanovic. You gotta when you're playing all these young guys, you gotta have one adult in the room, I suppose, and that's kind of what Bojan's role is here on this team. That and just knocking down 3-pointers, which he's done pretty well to start the season. Sadiq Bey is probably fine at 5,500. He's just somebody I don't really ever play. There are going to be some nights where he gets hot, but for the most part, I'm fine with being without Sadiq Bey on most slates. Beef stew, a little beef stew if you're feeling it. The weather's getting a little chilly outside. Maybe warm yourself up with a bowl of beef stew. He's been at 1.01 DraftKings points per minute this year. He should see 28 to 30 minutes at 5,300. That makes him okay.
All right, you mentioned scoring in Bojan there. Just looking here quickly at OddsShopper, our sister site, you can check out the actual stochastic projections coming through on the player props there. All you need to do is have your email address to sign on in. I just sign in through Google. You get everything after that. We just ask to maybe mail you something every now and then. I'm on the mailing list to get about one thing a week from this. So it's usually, hey, do you want to try some beta testing? Or, hey, have you looked at this? So nothing too intrusive there, but I see he is at 18.5 with the over there on DraftKings. PointsBet has him at 19.5. They've got a little juice on the under, so it's kind of right there in the middle. We're projecting him for 18.9 points. I would take the over, and I would look to it on DraftKings. This feels like one that, because it's so close, just a 55% chance of success, feels a little better as part of a same game parlay or wrapping it together with a couple other wagers just to help boost the odds a little bit, but it's essentially coming in at even money. So that's not a bad one to go to. I think his baseline probably should be closer to 20. We'll have to see. This is kind of showcasing him. I'm sure they'll deal him for a second round pick or a second round pick swap as we get closer to the playoffs, but just one to keep an eye on there. Anything else you'd like to mention from this matchup?
I think that's it.
All right. Don't worry. We've got some good ones coming up. The next one, yeah, we'll see. It's New York at Cleveland. Cleveland favored by 3.5, 220 over under. New York, mostly healthy. Cleveland, missing Darius Garland, has an eye injury. So that has put Donovan Mitchell into a prominent role. Of course, the Cleveland front court is looking pretty solid. The Knicks, on the other hand, cast of thousands. Without anybody missing at this point in the game, we're counting on foul trouble or just the vagaries of whatever the coaching rotations are going to be to find any value here. Makes this one a little tough. They're not quite playing at the frenetic pace we saw 2 years ago when Julius Randle was kind of a thing. He has sort of come back to the pack now that he has a reasonable talent around him. It's not just him and a bunch of nobodies and never were's, but it just makes it a little tricky on this one. I do like Donovan Mitchell. I'm okay with Julius Randle. What are you seeing in your crystal ball?
The one guy I'm kind of keeping my eye on for the Knicks is RJ Barrett. His price has gotten to a point on FanDuel where I think he has some buy low appeal there. Thibodeau recently kind of came out and said that they want him to start shooting the ball more. The usage rate has been down to start the season, and he hasn't been providing a ton in the way of fantasy value, but I do think that he's somebody that we can expect some progression for moving forward. So I think he's somewhat intriguing to me. I do have some Mitchell Robinson in my lineups currently. His minutes are all over the place, right? He's got 20 in his last game, 37 two before that, 30 the game before. So I think 30 is probably about a median expectation for him minutes wise. And certainly Robinson is the type of player who can get us a fantasy point per minute. So those are really the two guys that I'm focused on for the Knicks. The Cavs are a bit more interesting, particularly Donovan Mitchell. As you mentioned, he's doing a little bit more distributing with Darius Garland out of the lineup. We know he's a usage guy. He's going to post a 35-ish% usage rate and get his shots up too. So the matchup isn't the best. I mean, you can make an argument it's one of the worst with a 220-point total. The Knicks do play pretty slow. They kind of turn things into a slugfest. But I think Mitchell has a little bit of stud appeal at his current price tag.
All right. I'm calling up DK here. So normally a lot of the times we're going to talk about, Isaiah Hartenstein potentially being an option, especially if Mitchell Robinson runs into foul trouble. Mitchell Robinson, in turn, reasonable option. He can really pile up the blocks. The challenge are there's two really good center options in the Phoenix game playing for the Suns that make it really tough to talk about any centers tonight, just because we're giving up the opportunity to get those guys. And then or Jokic, right? So it makes it, everybody else is just kind of an afterthought. Could they have good games? Yes. Is the chalk going to be strong on these other guys? Yes. But it feels like it's good chalk in this case, and you really don't want to screw up your center position here because it's going to be tough to make it up. So you either go with one of the best point per dollar plays, which we'll talk about, Jock Landale and Bismack Biyombo, or you want to go with Nikola Jokic here. So that makes it a little hard where we're like, anybody that has power forward eligibility, however, like Randall, starts to become a little bit interesting or worthy of discussion. Or in this case, Kevin Love, who actually looks pretty good at 4,600 on DraftKings. So he is someone I think should be on our short list. He's coming in just under double-digit popularity here at 7.5. But he's someone I think we want to keep an eye on. Same thing goes for Karis LeVert. His salary has come up, up higher than I would like to see it at 64, still reasonable. He's getting that 5.2 per thousand fantasy points here. So that's, what I think is a reasonable number that he should be on our short list. And with shooting guard small forward eligibility, now he's eligible up and down the entire DK roster. So I think he's someone who's interesting, but we sort of lose out on Jarrett Allen. Evan Mobley, I'm on the fence on. He does have power forward eligibility, but he has to kind of deal with, he has two guys that can ace him out of his production. So he is not quite yet the dominant force. He will be. He's spending most of his energy on defense, but he is going to be an excellent complete player, over the next decade. I think will look good with, or he will look good across there. But I think think Mitchell and Kevin Love are probably the two guys I really want to go to in this game. Sorry, Donovan Mitchell, not Mitchell Robinson.
That makes
sense.
Be
clear about that. Got to be clear about that.
And Karis LeVert, as you alluded to, one of the better leverage ratings in the boom bust tool. Him and Kevin Love both popping in that regard. So, yeah, maybe those are some like contrarian-ish plays that you can consider. In tournaments, it does feel like most people in this game are really not going to be clicking on a lot of players. So, yeah, I like that call. I think those are sharp takes.
Every now and then I fall into something. Every now and then. We won't make it a habit, though. But every now and then, the sun shines on the old dog. Every now and then. All righty, let's mention quickly here, No House Advantage. They are bringing you a new fantasy sports platform in that they are putting together player props into a tournament format. So what they do is they'll put about 200 questions out for player props. You will select, tonight we've got 10 different, you'll pick 10 different questions. You will rate them with a confidence level of 10 through 1. If you get the prop right, whether you choose to go over or under, you get those points. Those points go against the rest of the people in the tournament. Their early NFL contest did not even get halfway full. Neither did their afternoon contest. They've got NFL single game content or contest tonight. That won't get more than half full. They've got their NBA product out there as well. So this is a lot of fun. We have free projections for you here at Stokastic for their sports. And then not only that, we've also put together optimal lineups for you by taking, answering all the questions we've put together. Oh, let's see. Looks like there's about 20 per row. We've got about 400 different lineups we've put together for you. Pick some of those, throw them in the contest, have some fun, take advantage of that overlay. Overlay is king. It's like DK and FanDuel and Yahoo all of a sudden saying, we're going to pay double our prize pool, yet charge you the same amount. You guys would be flocking to that. That's what No House's Advantage is doing right now. Sign up through the link below us. Once you come through on that link, make your first deposit. They will match you up to $50. Put in 20, they give you 20. Put in 50, they give you 50. Put in 100, they give you 50 because it's a $50 deposit match. But you can have some fun with that. I'll drop the projections page into YouTube for you. All righty, Matt, back to business here. We have a minute. Now we've got some stuff to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
We got 4 games that are well worth talking about. Do I want to skip all of these 6 o'clock games? No, I don't want to leave them out of my player pool. If there was just one of them in there, I wouldn't mind. I'd sit back, figure out what the heck I'm going to do. But cutting out 3/7 of the player pool, not really what I'm hoping to do. Worst case scenario, if I have an upload issue or whatever, I'm on there. Okay, I'll accept that. But this is not like other nights where I want to cut it out. There's at least 1 or 2 players on each team that we should have interest in. Yep. There's a whole bunch of players on this next team or in this next game that we should have interest in. So you've got Minnesota at San Antonio. This feels like we've seen this matchup before. Oh, wait. This is the 3rd time these two teams have played each other in the last 7 freaking days. What is this, a playoff series? I don't know what's going on, but talk about wonky scheduling. But this will be their 3rd game basically in a week. The one thing I really want to point out is Karl Anthony Towns. So Towns is 8,500 on DraftKings. He's 8,400 on FanDuel. You know what's great about him? He's power forward eligible because Rudy Gobert's on the team now, and he has to be the center guy. So that moves Karl Anthony Towns into a position where we're not loaded with other options. Great, that's helpful. His salary, very reasonable at 8,500 and 8,400. Why is it that reasonable? Well, his production isn't quite where we are used to seeing it. It's because he has a much better team around him. So far this season, he's averaging 35.5 minutes per game, which is the most we've seen since the 2017-18 season. However, his field goal attempts and rebound opportunities are at 5-year lows. He is averaging a career high 5.5 assists. Again, this is just through 6 games. And he's getting, his usual share of 3-point attempts. I like him tonight. It's a reasonable price. At some point he's going to splash the threes, get the double-double bonus on DraftKings, and we're going to see a 50 fantasy point outing. He's hovering right around 40. This isn't bad. He just has, Anthony Edwards healthy, D'Angelo Russell healthy. You've got the addition of Rudy Gobert taking up the rebounds. And then now it's Jaden McDaniels is the glue guy. All right. Well, 4 of the 5 are good. We'll see. But they're a much better team. So I really like Karl Anthony Towns tonight. Start us off there. Work us through the rest of the T-Wolves and know somewhere Eric Lindquist is watching this.
Hi, Eric. I am out on Karl Anthony Towns. And everything you said.
Good, sir. I agree to disagree.
You made
Pistols at dawn.
You made a nice, strong argument. I just don't think, like, with the way that the Timberwolves lineup looks now and the way that the ball is being distributed, the shot attempts are being distributed, I don't think Towns is the same player that we've seen in the past. I think that 8,500 is a pretty proper price tag for him. He is a candidate to get into the 40s for sure. I question the ceiling at an $8,500 price tag. You've got Anthony Edwards, who I think is blossoming into, kind of a usage hog. And Rudy Gobert being on the team is just kind of going to kill Towns' rebound numbers, unfortunately. So there is an opportunity for him to knock down a bunch of threes or something like that. But I still struggle to see him getting, to 50 plus with a lot of consistency, which is kind of what you need for tournaments at this price tag.
All right. Kyle, I should have mentioned Kyle Anderson's game time decision. He's missed, I think, 2 games now with this sore back, and Kyle McLaughlin also game time decision. I see. Sometimes we're going to have to disagree on these shows, and of course, me disagreeing with our ace analyst is always like, nice to go, nice to go. But I'm leaning a little more into Karl Anthony Towns on this one. Absolutely agree. Challenge to get that upside, but the price is right. The power forward eligibility is key. Matchup for his skill set. I'm all in on this one. I will be going above the field. Now the field's at 20% on DraftKings, so that's not an aggressive thing. I'll be trying to get around 30 to 35. Not a huge stand, but enough on this slate. I'm just going to refresh that and see if that changed. Nope, we're still around 19%. So that is more where I am. The thing I've learned in basketball, you start to get after the 5 most popular guys. When you get down into that sort of scrum where things flatten out, it's key to start choosing there to go over or under by 5 to 10 percentage points. And then that gives you differentiation amongst where the rest of the field is going. So I usually like to sort Fantasy Cruncher, run through the top 25, 30 point per dollar guys, see where I want to go, run through the top 20, 25 projected guys for the raw projected, see where I want to go. And then I look at the most popular. And by the time I'm done with that, I've made a manual adjustment to about 50 people in the player pool. It's relatively quick to do. And just sort of by using those guidelines, for me, that kind of helps me get where I want to go. Then depending on where the caps are set, if you go too high or too low, you're really going to, force things around. Plus, then if you've got randomness going on, or uniques or whatever you're doing in your optimizer of choice, that's having the same effect as setting player caps. So these things can all work in concert and really get out of hand. So you want to see where you are. You may want to set a projections floor, et cetera, to sort of kind of balance in on usable lineups. Now, a lot of our nifty analysts here, they've got sorting tables and things like that. I still kind of like to keep my thumb on the scale, if you will, and do it this way. It makes me feel like I'm a part of the process. It's more fun for me to do it this way. But effectively, that's the blunt way of doing this, and just kind of forcing things into where you want to go. We land in similar spots. Could I choose a more efficient or accurate way? Yeah, but what am I getting? 2-3% more? The margins are razor thin these days, so those are important. But I'm playing with fun money, not the Adam Scherer $100,000 a week money. But I digress. Anything else you want to talk about from the Minnesota side? Because there's a lot going on here for San Antonio, and we'll just set Josh Primo aside. But you have Devin Vassell is going to be out, which kind of opens things up. You've got Keita Bates-Diop in the starting lineup, Romeo Langford in the starting lineup as well. Josh Richardson is out. So that's no bueno, because he is someone we've looked to in the last few slates. Finish up Minnesota and dive on into the brilliant mind of Coach Greg Popovich.
Minnesota, I will be more overweight on Anthony Edwards. He's the guy for me that I'm going to expect to take on the bigger scoring burden in this spot. I like the positional eligibility a little bit more for him than I do with Towns. And both players have roughly the same fantasy point per minute output so far this season. So I'll take Edwards just a little bit cheaper. I think that both players have very similar median and ceiling projections. So I'll take my chances with him. Jalen Noel is someone we've been using for value to start the season, somebody who's played really well for us. And we could potentially go back to him, I think, if Jordan McLaughlin and Kyle Anderson are ruled out. Otherwise, he's getting a little bit too expensive for me to roll the dice on. 5,100, is not the same as when he was in the low to high 3K type range earlier this season. And that's pretty much where I am with the Timberwolves at the moment. The Spurs are far more interesting on this slate. Tons of value up for grabs. They are clearly going after Victor Wembanyama. They're going to do whatever possible, including sitting Devin Vassell and whoever else they have.
He's hurt.
Yeah, sure he is. Sure he
and
is.
I'm
EMac.
tall, so there we go. And thin and young. All right. Well, maybe not.
Sorry. Blake Wesley is going to get some minutes off the bench. He's kind of popping as the most popular player in this slate at 3,200. Think he's a strong option at that price tag. He averaged 1.08 DraftKings points per minute in his first game this season. I don't know if that's a sustainable figure for him. We have just virtually no sample size to really compare that to, but he should get into the mid 20s minute wise today. And at 3,200 in a game with such a high total, I think that that's certainly playable. You mentioned Keita Bates-Diop is going to start. He's certainly usable at 3,400. I really like Zach Collins as well. He's been kind of crushing with a low minute count recently. Maybe you give him a couple of extra minutes tonight, but he's averaged 1.37 DraftKings points per minute so far this year. Really strong figure. I don't know how much he's going to cut into Jakob Poeltl's minutes because he's also been very good, but maybe they play both of those guys together. Who knows? It's a weird night for the Spurs. Then you got Doug McDermott. You've got Isaiah Roby. Like all these guys are grading out well from a value perspective. So I think picking the right Spurs is going to be where the challenge is tonight. I have Wesley clearly as the best from a value perspective. But then after that, I don't think you can go wrong playing 3 or 4 of these guys in your lineup.
So where would you go with Wesley? How much above? I'm assuming you're thinking above the field. We have him at 42% right now on DK. Would you say 50% feels good? Would you run it uncapped? God, who was the player we had 90% of I can't even remember now. These slates all run together. If it was last night or 2 nights ago, we had someone at 90%, which is what I wish I would have done with Tony Pollard today. Instead, I capped him at 65%.
That's where I'm about 65%
65
at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a combination of just, what we've seen from him, which again is a very small sample size, but I think he's just the best value play on the slate. And that's somebody that I usually try to be overweight on.
All right. McBucket's a little bit tougher to get to. I artificially bumped his projection up to 20 points. So I gave him an extra bucket, but he is shooting guard small forward eligible. That utility does help a lot on DraftKings. He's 4,100, but that's the kind of the player. If you don't start looking at caps on or tamping down some of the your player popularity caps here, you're not going to get these guys. And that's where I was sort of talking about the 5.0, points per dollar value rating. You have to be careful because if you leave them too high, the optimizers are just going to take tons of those other players, and all of a sudden you're going to compare your player mix to what the field is, and you're not even going to be close. You're going to be massively over on the top 20 guys, and you're not going to have anybody else. And that's where you want to be a little careful when you're utilizing these optimizers. And I see people say, EMac, you're rambling here. A lot of people only get to play on Sundays, Saturdays, and Sundays. We don't have the NBA strategy show. We're just 10, 11 days here in on NBA. So just reminding everybody here. I got a message here from Terry. I'll have to read that. Anything else you want to wrap up from?
Just confirming the starting lineup is not out yet. So we're kind of just assuming right now. I'm assuming that Wesley comes off the bench. If he starts, then I have no problem, kind of shoving my chips into the middle with him even a little bit more. And Keita Bates-Diop, we mentioned he could start. I think he's a candidate to start, but that's not confirmed yet. So that game tips at 7. I think giving yourself flexibility to pivot to whoever does get the start is probably a smart option. You've got a few candidates. McDermott could start, Bates-Diop could start, Romeo Langford could start. So give yourself some flexibility. It's hard to know exactly what Pop is going to do, but regardless, like this is a team that you clearly want to get some exposure to.
Yep, and I see T McBee was just messaging me, and I see chat did as well. We do have another ownership run here, and Wesley came down dramatically. He's down to 19%. So now I would say, okay, 33%, 35%, 40%. That feels a little more correct. The hard part with him is if you get him in your lineups and he's not starting, you want to do something else. He's so cheap, it's very hard to move elsewhere unless you have multiple players from this game. Now, fortunately, probably half of our player pool is coming from these last few games, so we should have some flexibility here, but we'll have to see. Looks like
now it is confirmed starting lineup.
All right, so, what do we have for the start? What happened to Roby?
It's going to be let's see. I'm sorry, I had it and I lost it on my screen. It's going to be Diop and Langford are in there alongside Trey Jones, Pirtle, and Keldon Johnson.
All right. We didn't mention, how do you feel about Pirtle? Another center.
Yeah, the fact that he's a center only is kind of tough.
And fighting for rebounds with Rudy Gobert. Not Rudy Gobert's defense, but fighting for rebounds. That's where I have the issue.
Yeah, and the minutes are, never as good as you want them to be. He's kind of capped at around 30. He does make up for some of that because he is so good on a permanent basis, but he's not a priority for me tonight.
All right. There we go. We'll see. We've got 22 minutes. We'll have at least one, if not two more projection runs. So we want to keep tabs on how this shakes out with the Spurs. I see T McBee saying Pop said Roby might be out. Thanks, Pop. Appreciate that. So, okay. So in that case, we'll all take Roby out, but it's not going to help me where all this other stuff ends up. Okay. So that kind of gets us through that game. We still have 3 more to go. Let's talk Orlando at Dallas. This is a 3-4 for Dallas. They played overtime last night. They played overtime on Thursday. They have what's his name? Oh yeah, Luka Doncic. Played 40 in both of those. So they won in New York 129-125 over the Nets. They lost last night to a tanking Oklahoma City squad. So yes, blowout risks. Yeah, I didn't see that one coming by all. So Luka could be a little bit tired, but the Mavs are 2-3. They can really put Orlando away tonight. Orlando's missing a bunch of their young talent. And if we're worried about Luka Doncic, who's over $12,000 on both sides, he does have the fastest 30-point triple-double in NBA history. Did that in 2019, November 2019, in the war against the Warriors in 23 minutes. Does he do that tonight? Probably not. But the point is, could he get it done in 30 minutes, even though he's a little tired? Yes. From a raw points perspective, salary's going to be all over the place. Yes, the ratio doesn't look great with him, but when you get these guys that are at these super high salaries, that's where you kind of got to look. All right, well, their salary, when you measure it out with some of the people we talked about on, or you kind of mix it in with some of the people we talked about on the Spurs, what we're going to talk about on Phoenix, you want to make sure you're going to get him, right? Because if you don't adjust your lineups or your optimizers, you're not going to get Luka Doncic. I want Luka Doncic tonight. I'd like to come in a little above the field on this one. I didn't see where we landed. I had the number I had in my mind was about 30%. Matt,
that's going to put you significantly over because we have him projected for only 10 at the moment.
So and could this be the least amount we ever see Luka Doncic?
It's pretty wild on a slate without Giannis to, kind of soak up some of that other stud ownership. It does feel weird to see him checking in with 10% projected ownership. I get that his price is higher than we're used to paying for him. Maybe there are some blowout concerns with Orlando. Maybe there's some fatigue concerns with all the overtime games that you mentioned, but there's no way in the world I'm not going to be overweight on a 10% owned Luka Doncic, right?
22, 23, 25%. Okay, that feels pretty good, right?
Yeah.
We're not overly egregious.
maybe where he's obviously not going to play 40 minutes, you would imagine, in a non-overtime game, but there are still ways he can make up for that production, right? He was 8 for 23 last night, 0 for 6 from 3-point range, and he had 71 DraftKings points. He can do stuff like that. He's leading the league in usage and assist rate. That's a combination that we haven't really seen since, when Russell Westbrook was good and James Harden was in Houston. So I think Doncic has officially entered that territory. I'm willing to be overweight on him to the tune of 30%. Like, he's just too good right now to fade, in my opinion. If we're comparing him to Jokic, who's the other top stud on this slate, I just think Doncic has been so much better than him from a fantasy perspective to start the year that I'm willing to put my eggs in his basket.
Interesting way of saying things. All right, you guys want to check out Matt's Fans Only account or OnlyFans, whatever it is. Go check that out. He'll tell you more about baskets and eggs and fun stuff. The rest of the Mavericks, is there anybody intriguing?
Not really. I mean, we did see Dwight Powell get the start yesterday in place of JaVale McGee. That didn't really amount to anything. Nobody else on the team is kind of doing much outside of Doncic and Christian Wood, and Wood's not playing enough minutes for it really to matter at this point. So I think Luka, you just kind of let him fly on the Mavericks, and that's about it.
Right. We got 18 minutes to go. Anybody from the Orlando side? My dog wants to come in.
Yeah, Orlando's an interesting team tonight because they also quietly have a ton of people sidelined, right? They've got Cole Anthony out. They've got Jalen Suggs out. Markelle Fultz is still out, along with Mo Wagner, Gary Harris, Jonathan Isaac. So they have a ton of people out of the lineup at the moment, which has been to the benefit of Paolo Banchero, who has just been absolutely crushing as a rookie. His assist rate was way up in their last game. That, I think, gives him a little bit of extra upside. I think 8K is still just a little bit too cheap for him. So I like Banchero at 8,000. I saw some people in the chat saying Franz Wagner tonight. I have no problem with that play either. Wagner only got to like 23 and a half minutes in their last game. He should play significantly more than that tonight. And I do think that he's another player who sees a bump as a distributor with all their point guards out. And, they're playing sort of this no point guard starting lineup with Bol coming in at center. So I'm focused most heavily on the two stud options, the highest priced options for the Magic. But I do think that they're a team that's somewhat interesting despite this game having such a low total.
All right, so the dog is in here now. People say they want to see her. Here she is. This is Jovi, as in John Bon Jovi.
Oh, hey, buddy.
She's now going to go on the floor and sit on her blanket. She turns 12 in January, but she's still pretty rambunctious. So there we go, chat. That was for you. Wife's not home, dog scratching at the door. I can only do so much. We still have 2 games to go, 16 minutes. We'll talk a little no house advantage. I did want to point out that in the there's 2 different landing pages for our no house advantage free projections. One is the projections that you can sort on overs or unders and the percentage or probability of that occurring. The other is a page that someone mentioned confused them. It is kind of confusing that you can just download. It's a CSV file format that we have created. Now the dog wants to go out. She just wanted to be on camera, I guess. So we created that so you can upload those more easily or choose from them. We'll generate about 400 or 500 lineups on most days. What you can do with those is you can kind of eyeball them one and sort of see what player names seem to be landing towards the top, and then it's developed a probability base through all 10 questions to land you where you want to go. So that's all that why that file just looks a little weird from what we're used to seeing. But you can see the more traditional file on the other page. But again, come in through our link below us here, and you can get a $50 deposit match on No House Advantage. Houston at Phoenix. Phoenix favored by 12.5. No DeAndre Ayton, tweaked his ankle, going to be out for about a week. No Eric Gordon for Houston tonight. It's back to back for them. So he is not playing. You also have Jabari Smith questionable, dealing with a sore ankle, and then of course Jay Crowder standing by to be traded. From a team that has a good chance at winning the Western Conference. So whatevs. That's where we are. It's where we are. What would you like to do from this game, and why does it look to Jock Lansdale and Bismack Biyombo?
Yeah, Phoenix.
And where do you project them for minutes? Because it could go any direction, right? Should we just say 24? Just move on.
I have Biyombo with a slight edge in minutes right now. I have him closer to 28 and Landale closer to 20. Biyombo started the second half of the last game. And I'm giving him the clear edge for me, just because we saw him play in games without DeAndre Ayton last year and just absolutely dominate. And he's at 1.28 DraftKings points per minute to start the year. That's a little bit better than Landale so far. So I give the edge to Bismack. I think playing both is fine, not in the same lineup, but having exposure to both is fine. But Bismack is the guy of the two that I feel the best about.
Yeah, and that's one that is, if you look across the industry, there's a variety of stands on that. And I think we ended up, our projections initially were a little bit more favorable for Lansdale, but they've come back a little closer. The thing is, we don't know for sure who's going to. Each one's probably going to play at least 20 minutes.
Yep.
Probably even 22. They won't play together, so one of them could get to 26. There could be foul trouble. There could be mop-up duty. One of them could get really hot and get 28 minutes at the expense of the other one, right? So there's a variety of ways these can go. This is and you mentioned the question, would you play these guys together? I don't have an issue with it. However, it sort of should self-resolve, because on FanDuel, you can't play them both. Mm-hmm. And on DraftKings, you're sacrificing your utility spot, which is probably going to go to another player, likely one of those in the Minnesota or Spurs game, or potentially somebody from the Houston side. So I think that'll self-resolve. You could set a rule in that. I don't have a huge issue with playing them together, but yeah, it sort of does cap the upside. But could they both get there from a point per dollar basis? Yes, they could. The site's got a tiny bit ahead of the salaries, so they're not flat minimums. I haven't looked at Yahoo, but they're not flat minimums here. So it's not the ultimate slam dunk, but they're two of the better plays. Which is the best? And we'll have to see after the game when we look at the box score, I guess.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, like, if you play them both in the same lineup, like, you're locking two positions in for 48 minutes. Yes. So I do not like that philosophy when your goal is to win a tournament. From a value perspective, like, if you wanted to make the case, can I do it in a cash game? I would be more open to that, because I do think that you're securing some decent value by playing both guys. But I do think for a tournament, it does severely cap your upside. The rest of the team,
time it took you to say that, I just went and created the rule and said, you know what? Not going to worry about it. Only going to play one. Now make sure you don't say must play one of each. At most one.
Right. I like that.
Very important. Very important.
Devin Booker is checking in with a significant ownership projection as for the rest of the Suns. And it's pretty easy to like him. He's been very good to start the year. The Rockets have been one of the better matchups in the league this season, but he's somebody that I'm not finding myself getting a ton of in my lineups. I just think that with Luka on this slate, and with some of these other guards that I like that are kind of in that same ballpark, like I'd rather have Donovan Mitchell at 8,800. I've gotten to Steph more at 9,800 than I have to Booker. He's just kind of somebody that I'm finding myself underweight to the field on. And with the way that the projections are in the boom bust tool, I think I'm okay with that.
All right. Chris Paul, reasonable. Cam Johnson, Cam Payne. They're probably the guys that see an uptick in minutes if there's going to be mop-up duty. The other side, no Eric Gordon, no Bruno Fernando. We'll have to wait and see what happens with Jabari Smith. But we got Jalen Green, Kevin Porter, Alfred Şengün are priority plays. KJ Martin and Jashawn Tate do a little bit better if Jabari Smith is going to be out. They're fine on the late slate. There's better options on the main slate than those guys. Anything you want to call out for Houston, or would you like to let us know if Anthony Davis is going to play tonight? If Mr. Glass will make an appearance as we talk about the final game. Wrap this one up, take us into the next one.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this about me, EMac, but I am a Jashawn Tate guy.
Where became Ohio State, right?
It became a running joke last year between me and Lindquist on the Sunday show that I ended up recommending Jashawn Tate basically every time the Rockets played. And a lot of the time it didn't work, but there were times where he would go out and get 40 for us at 5% ownership. So I think that given the Rockets sort of deficiencies or absences on the wings, I'm in on Jashawn Tate tonight. I would prefer it if Jabari Smith sits, of course, but there would be some minutes for him still, I think, even if Jabari Smith plays. So Jashawn Tate, one of my tournament guys tonight.
Was he even drafted?
I honestly don't.
Four-year player. I know he was. I wrote him up a bunch when he first came on the scene. Four-year player out of Ohio State. I know that. I remember when he first popped in the scene, you could get him at shooting guard, small forward, or power forward because the sites had no idea what position he was going to be. He's like 6'4". He's a lefty. I know all this stuff about him. I can't play him anymore, but I liked him too briefly.
You know, he went to Pickerington High School Central.
I had no idea. Where is Pickering?
Somewhere in Ohio.
Well, Pickering Plaza is a place out in Issaquah, Washington, not far from where I used to live. It was a shopping center. There we go. That's all I got for Pickering. But really, Jashawn Tate?
Yeah, Jashawn Tate, baby. It's Jashawn Tate and Şengün. Those are really my guys right now on the Rockets. Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., fine, but not guys that I'm overly exposed to.
All right, that's the overly exposed part. That's later in the night, right? What are you doing with Anthony Davis? We got 7 minutes to go here. People are going to want to know.
I'm not expecting him to play just because he's Anthony Davis. And I will say Anthony Davis, for the amount of questionable tags that he gets, he does tend to try to play through them. I think it's because he has this perception of, you know, he's soft and injury prone. He suits up sometimes that I think maybe it's even a little bit of a detriment to his team that he does it. But yeah, I'm just kind of proceeding that he's not going to play. That said, I'm not getting to a ton of LeBron either. Just LeBron James.
Been waiting for that ever since they paired us together. Sounds so much better in person.
Just because of Luka. Like he's $1,500 cheaper than Luka, but I'm paying that $1,500 almost every time.
All right. So if Davis doesn't play and potentially want Toscano Anderson out again, where are you looking with this? You gonna, is it Russell Westbrook, or are you gonna stick with the Beverleys, Lonnie Walkers, Troy Browns of the world?
It's just such a bad lineup. Troy Brown, I think, becomes the most appealing option, right? He played over 30 minutes in their last game, but he kind of needs to play 30 minutes because he's a terrible per minute producer. So I think he would be the guy for me from a value perspective. This team is just so bad. What were they thinking, right? Like, it's just so poorly constructed. There's nobody that I want to play.
GM LeBron not getting a lot of fun kudos from you, I guess, huh?
No, LeBron James is not a great GM.
All right. On the other side here, Denver Nuggets, you've got Jamal Murray working his way back, Michael Porter working his way back. Their upside is going to be hard for them to get. They're going to need to be efficient. There's no reason for the Lakers or the Denver Nuggets to run them into the ground. Jokic, you mentioned, not quite what we've seen the last 2 years because he's got help for once. So it does dramatically change things when he doesn't literally have to do everything. Now he has the luxury of, oh, we need more rebounding tonight. Oh, we need more scoring tonight. Oh, we need somebody to facilitate the offense from the wing. I got it. No problem, guys. I'm here for you. But it makes it a challenge. God, I'm getting 35% Jay Sean Tate.
Yeah, baby.
Oh, this is not feeling good at all. Oh boy. But where do you want to go? We got 4 minutes left here. Throw us your thoughts on our buddies in Los Angeles. And I'm going to get my lineups uploaded here.
So Denver is interesting tonight because of the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope situation. He's questionable. If he doesn't play, then Bruce Brown probably stays in the starting lineup. He started their last game, didn't do very much, but he did play 30 minutes. Christian Braun also played over 30 minutes in that game, and Jeff Green played nearly 25. So those are 3 really cheap players. I guess Bruce Brown's not really cheap anymore, but 3 affordable guys who all have the potential to see a good bit of playing time if KCP is unavailable. So I am leaving myself a little bit of flexibility with the Nuggets to try and get some of their dudes in there, depending on what happens with KCP. But for the most part, I'm out on their top guys. Nikola Jokic, we know, always has the upside for 70, but again, for me, it's Luka.
All right, we have 3 minutes to go. I've got my 93 lineups I'm apparently playing tonight, so I'm going to upload those so I do get some exposure to the earlier games here. I will say a lot of Kevin Love and Donovan Mitchell coming in. Ultimately is where I landed. So I'm going to be going a little bit above the field there. I'm okay with those guys, especially for their prices. And then I, of course, did get up to 30% Booker, 30% Doncic, and 30% Karl Anthony Towns. Don't do this to me. There we go. I have new Excel, and somehow I turned on night mode on it, and it makes it's very disconcerting looking at it. Have you turned on night mode yet on Excel?
I didn't know Excel had night
I
mode.
didn't either, but now I've got it. So yay. Just not particularly enjoyable. Because my work computer does not have that turned on, and I can't figure out how to change the setting. But here we are. 90 seconds left before lock. I want to remind everybody at 7:15, we do have NFL Live Before Lock going off here. You're going to get Eric Lindquist and Neil Orfield on that. Don't forget, you're playing on No House Advantage. They've got their single game contest tonight. We've got free projections for those as well. Their site actually has a lineup uploader and a sort of a lineup builder as well that's self-contained that will allow you to mass multi-enter and take advantage of that overlay. And then tomorrow, 6:30 a.m., starting it all off with the process with Josh Engelman, followed by another 7 hours of live DFS analysis, and then 31 videos on demand covering season-long football, betting for football, betting for basketball, DFS for basketball, props, all the different sites. We've got you covered. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. That would help us as well. And don't forget, we've got the Odds Shopper channel. We got the Osmo Fantasy Football or Stokastic Fantasy Football channel. And we've got Stokastic here. We got you covered. This is the place to be. With that, you can follow Matt LaMarca on Twitter at Matt LaMarca. I am at EMac DFS. Of course, it is awesome. Stokastic _COM. With that, gamers, good luck.
LeBron James.